It is another great day in the world of crypto. Today I want to talk about Bitcoin breaking above $4,000 for the first time in a few weeks and kind of what that might mean and some of what the kind of TA people out there are talking about. I also want to talk about the world of ICOs right now and what Kick by Kin, what that ICO has gone to taught me about the future of ICOs and overly aggressive fundraising, in my opinion, and how and when you should participate within an ICO, especially looking at Kin and taking that in as an Kick by Kin and taking that in as an example. So let's get into it today. So upon waking up this morning, not too much crazy stuff happening in my mind. I wake up, kind of see the price of everything, same as normal, come into taking the bus in to work this morning to get in nice and early to make a video for you guys and pop open GDAX, take a look at Blockfolio, and all of a sudden I see Bitcoin back above 4,000, which was fantastic to see. And by the way, guys, this actually isn't a closet. This is a little mini conference room here, so don't think I'm that weird. I've had a couple people be like, yo, are you recording this in a closet? I'm like, it's a conference room, so it's a halfway closet. But beyond that point, sorry if you're on the podcast, if you're on the audio podcast, but yeah, this is coming from a conference room kind of early in the morning before getting my day started at work. But outside of that, when looking at this $4,000 mark, Bitcoin had a pretty convincing move from the $3,900 range it was sitting at for a little bit of time. Within 1 hour, went from $3,950 all the way up to $4,050 and above, and is now sitting at right above or right below $4,080 on GDAX, and this is from a USD perspective. Ethereum having a nice move there as well, up to $296, and then Litecoin also making a pretty substantial movement up to $54. So kind of the big three all having nice convincing movements up, really led by Bitcoin there, though, up to 40.80. With that being said, a lot of what I've been following for the past couple weeks has been, or really not the past couple weeks, but since September, and as we've kind of entered this, what a lot of people have called like no man's land between between $3,500 and $4,000. A lot of people have been talking, two major scenarios. Obviously, it makes sense. Is the market going to go up or is it going to go down? A lot of people had said we'd really come to this pretty critical inflection point within Bitcoin where basically the market, and you can see here, this is Turd to Meester. It's at Turd to Meester. It's one of the guys I follow. I think he has really good thoughts on technical analysis, but there was basically this point where Bitcoin was kind of moving between 4,000 and 3,500. You could see the kind of triangle lines that were drawn here, and it was getting closer and closer to this point in time where the movement was either going to have to be kind of a straight shot up or a straight shot down. Bitcoin started to creep out of this triangle a few days ago to the upside, to that $3,800, sitting above 3,900, and like Tur correctly called here, at that point in time, we had moved out of that pattern, moved into somewhat of a bullish signal there above 3,900, but there was still a potential place where it could be, in a lot of cases, somewhat potentially bearish, or the move really wasn't a full-on breakout of the pattern that we were in. As of right now, and I think this was a pretty good analysis, and to my opinion, called it pretty nicely, and really goes to show some of the benefit from a technical analysis perspective of what some of this can mean. But this is this is less than 45 minutes ago here, talking about kind of what, and this was on a Korean, from Bitcoin to Korea, not from US dollars. I have no idea, as far as the actual currency from a Korean perspective, but what some of this means and how this potentially can move up. But you can see here that inflection point right now within Bitcoin of breaking through the resistance. If we can hold, I think that's a really solid sign. So for the past couple weeks, and really for all of September so far, for the majority of September, but I think there's been somewhat of a bearish perspective from Bitcoin's standpoint, which is for almost the entirety of the market made a lot of made a lot of people somewhat nervous when you're looking at, at Bitcoin and at the rest of the market in general. There was a lot of, China news, there's regulation, exchanges, blah, 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 FUD, FUD, FUD. Right now, it looks like, as we're seeing it, here was a lot of the negative news. You can see these massive red candles. And again, this is Bitcoin to the Korean pairing or the Korean fiat. But we're at this point now where we've hit that line of resistance, and it looks like if we can really hold above that, we might be back up to test those all-time highs that we had previously. So I'm feeling pretty positive about that. I had a decent amount of my money personally. that I had taken, moved into fiat when we were at 3,800, and we dipped down to about 35, then 3,100. I made some trades in there to kind of increase the stack a little bit. For the most part, I'm back all in right now. I think that we are in for a bullish pattern, at least in my opinion. I think there's some confidence back in the market as far as getting back in the 4,000s and seeing what that can look like. So I'm feeling fairly positive about the market, and that's just, for me, you guys know I'm not a technical analysis guy. I kind of crowdsource that type of information for myself personally. I've been working to learn as much about TA as possible. I've been taking some courses. I've been trying to get a good feel for kind of what a lot of that means, the benefits to it. But I crowdsource a lot of that from people like her, from a lot of other people on Twitter, on basically all over the place, to try to get as much of that information as possible and then make educated decisions based off that for me. So from what I'm seeing from a TA perspective, it seems like if we can hold above this, this kind of line right here, and this is, again, Bitcoin to the Korean pairing, but if we can hold above that type of line, similar to USD, I think we're in a pretty good place. And as you can see, there, a pretty convincing move on the 1 hour charts here, but we'll see how this develops for the rest of the day. But overall, a solid day. I think, pretty positive sign here, depending upon where we can continue to move forward. But I'm starting to feel a change in the market, at least in my mind, and a lot of people that I'm sensing, is that the overall the FUD has been somewhat put behind us. It's been priced into the market. People aren't as worried about it. China is basically out, but the game isn't over. So unless something crazy happens there with China just freaking throwing everybody that had anything to do with Bitcoin in jail, which I don't think will happen, hopefully not, for their sakes, but I think we're for the most part past that. So I'm happy about what we're seeing today. I think it's a really good sign in my mind, and I'm going to continue to watch these charts. I think the charts should be a fun day to sit back, watch these charts, see what the hell goes on. But it's always fun to see these types of massive, not necessarily massive. It's a 3.5% movement, but it's cool to see that type of movement as the market continues to develop. So that's what's been, that's what was kind of on my mind from a market perspective, breaking above $4,000 convincingly. Can we end the day above $4,000? And can we start to get some momentum there? I think that would be, very nice for the overall sentiment of the market, and would be a strong bullish pattern for us moving forward. So I'm looking forward to seeing kind of how that continues to develop. Outside of that too, from just a daily market percentage, NEO is continuing to have a really strong week. NEO is up 20% in the past 24 hours, back to close to $32 USD, which is pretty interesting to see. We also have to consider that at one point in time, NEO was above $50. So, we're still, while NEO is up considerably, there's still a lot of people that are holding bags in the, buying in at the plus 40 range, and still, at a pretty decent loss size there. But if you look here, NEO has really bounced heavily off these lows of, bounced heavily off these $13 lows. If you bought in when NEO was $13, $14, $15, it's been a hell of a trade for you. So congratulations on that. I know a lot of people are pretty strong, pretty big backers of NEO. So good to see, folks have done well there. Now, in addition to that, those are kind of the big things that I wanted to call out today from a market perspective. But outside of the markets, ICOs are something that I know a lot of people like to talk about. A lot of people like to put emphasis on, and there's a fantastic opportunity to make money with ICOs. I have done I've done pretty well with ICOs. I've also, gotten my nuts kicked in a few times as well. And this right here is a lesson for a lot of people. Now, the headline is going to make this seem a lot better than the reality of this, in my opinion. The headline is, wow, Kik. If you're not familiar with Kik, Kik is a messaging application by a company, Kin. It's a Canadian company. Been in existence, I believe, since 2009, since 2010. Really popular application with, I think, like 6 million monthly active users. Really strong in the teen community. But if you look at some of the data within the app stores, Kin is actually declining in popularity because of increasing competition from Facebook, from Snapchat, from Telegram, from the plethora of messaging applications that are now in the marketplace. So Kin has already raised over $100 million previously in venture capital funding from a variety of big venture capital firms. Kin was one of the bigger and had a ton of press from big news sites like TechCrunch. We're here on TechCrunch right now. This is an article from yesterday, from 9 hours ago. So basically posted at like midnight last night on the East Coast time. But Kin raised around, you can see here, $47.5 million based on a $282 Ethereum price, ETH price, with over 10,000 backers. In addition, they had previously raised over $50 million in a pre-sale from a number of institutional investors. So there were a number of different crypto hedge funds and basically crypto hedge funds, crypto VC funds that got into Kik from a pre-sale perspective at a nice discount. I believe, I don't want to get misquoted here, but I think the discount was something like 30% or so. So they were looking to raise as much as $125 million. They didn't come close to that. They were looking to get, about $75 million from retail investors, and they got $47.5 million from retail investors. So, it was not a sellout. And the reason for that being is, a couple different things. At the time of Kik's ICO, the market was down a little bit, and I think the ICO climate cooled off. But the biggest thing here, in my opinion, is that Kik was raised money at over $1 billion valuation. Over $1 billion valuation for their tokens. So, when you're looking at that, if we go over to CoinMarketCap, how many tokens are over $1 billion in valuation? There are 11 tokens that have over $1 billion valuation. None of them really are applications. They are basically all cryptocurrencies, or they're basically protocols or cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin, Ethereum, Ripple, down to Monero and Ethereum Classic. The closest thing to an application might be OMG or Omise Go, but there really aren't any straight up tokenized applications that are utility tokens, really, that are in the top 10, 12 that have anywhere near $1 billion valuation. So Kik has come out, raised money at $1 billion valuation for the token, and to that point as well, they raised, with it being said, they only provided folks with 10% of the actual tokens in existence. I don't even know if this is on CoinMarketCap here, but there's a lot of criticism really in regards to Kik and just how aggressive they got from a valuation perspective. And this is what really held back Kik, in my opinion, because when you're looking at it, it had all the makings of a good ICO, in my opinion. It has an existing product. There's an existing company. There's an existing product. There were institutional backers already. People put legitimate, I think it was Polychain Capital and a couple other companies put in $50 million in a pre-sale. Goes to show that institutional people that are mostly smarter than you and I put money into it. And to that point in time, they there was somewhat of a logical distribution. There was excitement around it. It was in TechCrunch. They were talking, TechCrunch was talking about it. A lot of other places were talking about it. They had, they were in big name podcasts. There was legitimate excitement around it. But as people got into it, you could see there was a lot of different, a lot of different kind of thoughts as far as why people didn't want to invest in the ICO. Like I said, they got ripped to shreds for their valuation. $1 billion valuation is far too aggressive. If Kik did something to the point of having a valuation where, let's even say they went for a $100 million valuation. Granted, that's 10% of what they have right now. If they did a $100 million valuation, they would have, number one, sold out everything. They would have been completely oversubscribed. There would have been incredible interest. And the second it hit the exchanges, there would have been a massive spike in price because a lot of people who wanted to get in on the ICO couldn't get in on the ICO. On the other end of the spectrum, what actually happened is they offered the ICO for more than a week, didn't sell out anywhere near close to what it was, and it is now on the exchanges. We're looking right here. It is now on the exchanges. And here we go. So we're on Kin, on Ether Delta. Right now, if I wanted to buy Kin, the price is a lot of zeros, 375. I did the math already on this. The ICO price was actually 0.00040, blah blah blah. It's right now presently on Ether Delta. It's trading at about 7.5% under ICO price after a pretty big green candle here as well. So after a pretty big green candle, it's trading about, you can see on this calculator here, it's trading at 92% of its ICO price. And I think that's going to, me personally, I think that's going to continue to head down because a lot of people probably have Kin right now. A lot of people probably have the Kin token right now and are going to be looking at, oh shit, it's already trading below ICO price after it's been on these exchanges for not very long. It's probably going to dip more. In my opinion, this is going to dip more because if you don't sell out your ICO, then you are in trouble, in my opinion. If there's not enough demand for your ICO when you're offering it at what should be a cheap price, the second it hits the exchanges, people are going to say, okay, like this didn't sell out, I'm going to ditch it. And this is what's happening right now with Kin or with Kik. So I think you're going to start seeing a lot of people ditching investments like this that were overvalued. And people got in when they were excited about the project, and now they're seeing that the project isn't, might not be living up to the hype of what they expected. So I expect something like Kik here to take a dip. It already is 8% below the ICO price. So if you invested in the ICO, you've already lost 8% from an Ethereum perspective, from an Ethereum from an Ethereum pairing perspective at least. But I don't know the exact US dollar depending upon the day you put, basically on the day you put that money into it, what the price of Ethereum was then. That would be the actual US dollar perspective. But from an Ethereum pairing perspective, you're down about 7.5%, 8%. So it'll be interesting to see how that continues to develop. But if I'm looking at things from here on out, what does this teach me? What do I understand from ICOs from going on? Companies that are way too aggressive from a money raising perspective are going to have a tough time selling out. If you're trying to raise $100 million, if you're trying to raise $125 million, it's not like June and July anymore where you would sell out $100 million in like 5 seconds. There are 50 different ICOs happening every single day. People have ICO fatigue. They have ADD from an ICO perspective. They don't give a shit anymore, honestly. You need to, if you are investing in an ICO, you want to invest in an ICO that has realistic money-raising capabilities, that is not going off at a crazy valuation, because if you invest in it and if it doesn't sell out, you are going to get your butt kicked when the thing hits the exchanges. That's kind of my opinion, and I think that's what a lot of these ICOs are going to have to start realizing, is if you get too aggressive, you're going to get your ass kicked, and it's not going to be a good thing for you. It's not going to be a good thing for your investors. So I'm a fan of these companies that are doing much more conservative valuations, because I would rather see a company, I would personally rather me and I think it's better for the company as a whole. I would rather see a company do a conservative ICO valuation and then have the ICO spike or gradually increase once it hits the exchanges. Then I would rather see an ICO try to have a $500 million or a $1 billion valuation and then basically see that token drop like a rock once it hits exchanges, because then that token is going to be named a shit token from then on out. The excitement around there's going to be a lot of bag holders. The excitement around the project is going to die off, and then you're kind of screwed. So that's my opinions on that. I think there's a lot to be learned from the Kin ICO. If you want to do your research, there's a lot of good research on it beforehand as far as why you shouldn't have invested in the ICO. A lot of people came out and tried to get points about why you should. I was initially somewhat positive about it, and then I started seeing the valuation and the discounts that were given pre-sale and things like that. So I ended up staying away from it. I didn't participate in it. I told people that were interested in it to kind of do with a grain of salt and maybe stay away from it. So that's kind of my thoughts on the Kin ICO and the lessons that you can learn there in regards to overvalued or overly aggressive valuations when it comes to ICOs. And again, keep an eye on the Bitcoin charts today. I think we're in for an interesting day after we've broken through the $4,000 mark. Is it the sign of a bullish trend in the near future? Are we heading back to those mid 4,000s, high 4,000s? Is this a bullish trend? I'm feeling pretty positive moving forward. My fiat is back in the game and is back ready to, is back getting utilized in Bitcoin and Ethereum. So I'm excited about that moving forward here. If you guys have questions, definitely let me know in the comments as far as your thought process on where Bitcoin is going, where it's heading. If Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, Neo, whatever it might be, would love to hear about that. And also your thoughts on the Kin ICO. If you learned any lessons from that, if you participated or you didn't participate in it, I'd like to hear about it too. Thank you guys so much for your time. If you are new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. I would really, really appreciate that. I do daily recorded crypto analysis on what's happening in the market movements, as well as individual tokens and crypto live happy hours where I get to hang out and interact with you guys. So thank you so much for your time here. I really do appreciate it. I hope this was helpful for you. And again, my name is Rob from Crypto Bobby. Hit that subscribe button, signing out. I hope you have a good one. Peace.